Hello.
Yes, let me just add a little bit about Antonia's speech. Dear President, Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, and most welcome guest. So this is Antonia's speech number 3 in the motivational strategies pathway. And she will deliver a well-organized speech on the topic of OCD, in which she will incorporate feedback from her last speech. And the main items of the feedback were less text on slides, more context about OCD, keep up the engagement and warmth throughout speech, and changing tones. Let's welcome Antonia.
Thank you, Smith.
Do you ever find yourself counting the steps as you go upstairs, or the number of bathroom tiles on the wall, or letters in a phrase? Perhaps you like to have everything on your desk at right angles, or you keep things for years and years because they might be useful. Does that make you OCD? Popular culture frequently refers to people being a little OCD, but it's not an adjective. The D in OCD refers to a disorder. It's a neurobiological disorder. How many people are affected by OCD, which is obsessive compulsive disorder? About 1 in 40 adults. That's around 750,000 people in the UK, or even larger number if you include the people around them, their families and work colleagues, and 1 in 100 children and teenagers, with more women than men affected. So these are the main types of subtypes of OCD, but there are more types. So let's have a look. We're starting with the contamination obsession, which you may be familiar with. This is people who wash their hands over and over, thinking germs from that doorknob might spread to the kitchen, or I have to wash that shirt again because it's just touched a pile of dirty laundry. I'll come back to hoarding. Symmetry is keeping every item just straight on your desk at right angles, and piles of jumpers must be of equal height. And doubt. Did I leave the house unlocked? Did I turn the cooker off? I better just check. And then a person may drive home several times to check these things. There may be invisible compulsions. These are the counting ones that we just don't see. Going on to the hoarders. Now this man has got an absolutely fascinating collection of old beer cans, and they're probably all in alphabetical order. But does he really need to keep them for years and years? Well, whoever shares his house might not think so. Or here, this collection of old newspapers and magazines are just taking up valuable living space. Often the living space becomes so consumed with clutter that it's just impossible to move around. Now, I keep my clothes in colour order and my CDs and DVDs in alphabetical order. Now, it could seem obsessive to some, but I think it's just good time management so that I can easily find something. So let's have a look at the OCD cycle. Obsessions cause anxiety. Compulsive behaviours bring some relief. So obsessive, they cause the what ifs, the doubts. I need to check, and this causes anxiety. So somebody goes to check it, and the anxiety will relieve the obsession for a while because they feel a need to do something, but then it comes back to a compulsion again. So maybe they need to count something or arrange something on their desk just so, and even an almost crazy thought such as, if I arrange my desk perfectly, My husband won't die in a car accident, and I can stop now because I've done enough. Checking is meant to relieve the anxiety, but sometimes it just doesn't. So the relief is only temporary and it goes back to the obsessions again. Washing hands, a familiar one, that contamination one. Now, of course, we have to wash our hands because of COVID-19, but this is excessive. This is people who wash their hands many times a day, over and over. Howard Hughes was obsessed with germs. He would incinerate his entire wardrobe if he thought there were too many germs in the house, and wash his hands until they bled. Towards the end of his life, he lay naked in bed, in darkened hotel rooms with tissue boxes on his feet to protect them. He thought it was a germ-free zone. It's also said that he burned his clothing if anyone came near him who was ill. Now, imagine being told to leave the house but with a tap running. How would that make you feel? Silly, annoyed, or extremely anxious that something bad will happen? Well, my mum was given this instruction by a therapist. She suffered OCD all my life till she died 18 years ago. She used to check door handles over and over, about 20 minutes at a time. In fact, she checked them so much that she pulled one off one day. She'd stand in a public lavatory and just check over and over. I'm not sure what for. Had money fallen out of her hand? I just don't know. And if I'd say, "Oh, come on, Mum," she'd have to start all over again. She'd check stamps were stuck on properly at right angles. Everything had to be at right angles, even the immense clutter in her home. And hoarding, my dad said she had every receipt going back to 1952. Now, they say that OCD can run in families. Well, I hope not. Can OCD be treated? Exposure response prevention therapy is a type of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, that involves patients repeatedly exposing themselves to or testing out their fears. For example, a patient afraid of contamination who worries about household dirt will be told to touch the bathroom floor and not wash their hands. A person who chronically checks for household appliances will be told to leave the house with the stove still on. There's a long wait for CBT on the NHS, and even when offered treatment, it's only going to be a short course. So maybe you could look for help in self-help books, or take a course of serotonin, which is supposed to help mask the problem but not treat it. Other treatment that is available immediately includes hypnotherapy, particularly the rewind technique. And I've been working in hypnotherapy for 30 years. So I hope that I have dispelled the myth that we're all a little bit OCD. Whilst we may have our rituals, our compulsive behaviours, it's when they take over control of us in our day that OCD becomes a disorder. Help is available.
Thank you, Toastmaster. I will give my evaluation in 5 parts: structure, content, delivery, applying the feedback, and a summary. So in terms of structure, a very effective introduction. Antonia grabbed our attention by using examples and rhetorical questions at the beginning. In the middle, she used also the slides effectively to show us the cycle OCD patients or people go through and examples. And she ended up with a conclusion which covered potential treatments, which is very useful for the audience. She could perhaps have introduced the content at the beginning so that we could easily follow. Number 2, the content was very interesting for people who have OCD or know people with OCD. I thought perhaps she could make it more relevant to a broader audience by, for example, saying what everyone can do to help OCD, people with OCD condition. She presented well the context at the beginning using statistics. She gave us very good relevant examples, both famous people as well as personal. And the most powerful one was one she talked about her mom. She used effectively rhetorical questions to take us between sections. In terms of the delivery, I would honestly say that the beginning was, the flow could have been smoother at the beginning and the engagement stronger. Probably linked to not enough rehearsal of this speech. So looking on site, probably looking at slides and slightly monotone at the beginning. But second part of speech was she switched gear and she was very effective in using vocal variety to evoke emotions. She used gestures to support and enhance the speech, good eye contact as well, and projected comfort and confidence in second part. So going in terms of applying feedback, overall very positive, less text on slides. The context was clear and changing the tone, as I said. A little bit more work could be done in terms of the engagement throughout the presentation. And lastly, I would summarize by saying Antonia excels at being a clear speaker. She's obviously very experienced, and for everyone, it's very easy to follow her. A few minor points, two minor points you could work on. I mentioned the transition, moving between slides smoother, and introducing the content more clearly at the beginning. Things that Antonia could do to challenge herself is introducing more drama, dramatizing the speech. And we had good examples with Anthony and Fabio, for example, who are very good examples for all of us. And also, yes, and maybe try humor as well, more humor. But her style would be perfect for the Andrew Marr show, the political show in the UK. So she could dramatize for a different style. Thank you very much.